I love it. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Common Good Podcast. Watching on the audio stream, on the video streams. It's our new graphic there at the beginning. Thanks for that, Dan. Still can't get enough of it. So some of you know, I was asking Dan if he could play it longer, if it could be a longer version of that thing.
Just play it for the whole thing. They don't need to see our faces.
Yeah, maybe every time you do a screen cut, you just...
we could use it for... Can we use it for commercial breaks?
There we go, yeah.
Oh, totally should have commercial breaks in this thing. Well, hey, if you're new to the Common Good Podcast, on Tuesdays we talk politics, and so we call it our Common Good Politics Day, and it's February 13th today in 2024 of the Common Era. Cloudy and going to be 40 degrees in Minnesota. Craziness. No snow. Still zero snow in Minnesota from the snow update.
Sunny and in the 60s. Sunny and in the 60s here in Arkansas. Whimsy had a snow day yesterday because there was a 1/4 inch of snow in Arkansas. And that led to a snow day. Doug, you mentioned that it's February 13th. I'm just curious, and Dan, maybe you can answer this for me. Is it acceptable to buy my wife a Valentine's gift today? Or do I have to wait?
You have to wait one more day, and you have to do it on the way home from work.
Like a real man.
Because who's the guy? Was it Walsh?
Was it Charlie Kirk?
Charlie Kirk, one of those guys.
I don't know the difference between Charlie Kirk.
Could be the same
I don't know the difference between Selena Gomez and Ariana Grande, and there's somebody else. I don't know the difference between these three people. I don't know the difference between Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh, and I do know who Ben Shapiro is, but I'd like to throw him in there too. Just don't know the difference between these people.
I think that's how people feel about this podcast. I don't know the Dougs from the Dans, from the Robbs.
The Dougs from the Dans.
And Ariana Grande is size at Starbucks. The others are performing artists, is what how I put that together.
Well, that's interesting because my daughter Ariana works at Starbucks. So here we go.
Does she order a grande? Because if she did, and when they called out the name and they said, we have an Ariana Grande, that would be awesome.
A grande for Ariana.
There would be dads giggling all over the place.
And eye rolls from literally everyone else. But hey, did anyone catch a football game the other day? So I heard Taylor Swift's boyfriend played at the Usher concert and got an award.
Nice one, Dan. Taylor Swift's friend played at the Usher concert.
Okay, so listen, as the podcast resident football fan, and maybe also as the podcast resident Swiftie, let me just say, the first half of this football game was so tremendously boring.
Yeah.
Because it's professional football, you mean?
No, because it was boring. I mean, just mistakes and no good action and just not good football.
Mm-hmm. Maybe good defense. It was
maybe. I'm not sure. Really I'm not even sure about that.
This poor offense.
And then it caught fire, and it went into overtime. And it was funny because there's this narrative that the NFL is scripted and that all of this stuff is fake. And the president of CBS had joked a couple days ago that the script said that the game was going to go into double overtime, which apparently now is not possible because of the new overtime rules that happened in the Super Bowl, which we found out about because the game went to overtime. Mm-hmm. It was in the Chiefs scored the game-winning touchdown with 3 seconds left in the first period of overtime. If it had gone 3 more seconds, it would have gone into double overtime, like the CBS, like 3 seconds away
Clearly
from
not
doing
scripted.
what
Clearly not
Scripps said.
scripted if they had kicked the field goal. Yeah.
I'll tell you, the big thing coming out of the game was Taylor Swift's boyfriend assaulting Wilford Brimley on the sidelines.
Wow, these are deep here. The coach looks like the oatmeal guy. Is that
diabetes?
Diabetes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
That was surprising, though.
Great
I was
game.
like, yeah.
Listen, it turned out to be a great game. Taylor Swift was there. I didn't think they showed her too much. It wasn't overbearing. She seemed to be having a good time, and obviously once the Chiefs won, and it turned out great for business. Most watched TV show of all time. When you bring together a sport which appeals to young men and couple that with Taylor Swift's huge following with young women, and the world came together for a game, and it turned out to be a good game. Most of my friends are Chiefs fans here in Arkansas, so I'm happy for them, and and happy for Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and a near-on holiday that we do with the Super Bowl, things are rearranged for it. So it's not only individual people choosing it; it's entire parties and bars and
Do you have any Super Bowl traditions? Super Bowl watching traditions that you have?
I used to. When I was a youth pastor at a big church back in the 90s, we would run Super Bowl watching parties. But back when you could call it Super Bowl watching parties, and then I don't know, then when you had to call it the big game, the Super Bowl was like we're gonna use
come after the youth groups copyright infringement.
Ridiculous. No, and I blame it on me not being a football fan and being out about that when I'm around other people in an irritating level of
they're like, well, we're not going to invite Doug.
I never get invited to these. I want to say, it's just because I'm not into football. But then people are like, I go to those parties my friends do all the time. We don't even watch the game. I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not why I'm not invited. Maybe there are indeed.
Because you will watch the game and loudly complain about it while it's happening.
Probably. I'll probably talk about concussions and men in fancy outfits grabbing each other and why we find this fun. But I knew so little. I tried to watch it because I knew this was going to happen. I said to Shelley, I'm going to be, having to talk about it. I just want to know enough. So I flashed in a few times. Here's how bad it was for me. I see that the Chiefs are on offense. I'm utterly perplexed. I start Googling Taylor Swift's boyfriend's name. And then I'm Googling, is he injured? Because I thought he was the quarterback. And I had no idea he wasn't the quarterback. How is a tight end the most famous guy in a football team? That makes no sense. There are rules about this. Who gets to be famous in football teams?
It's only the quarterbacks, Yes.
So I literally thought, oh no, maybe he's been injured. And then I realized he's a tight end, and I put my phone down and thought, okay, don't try to catch up at this point. Just let it roll. Just let it roll, and then turn it back on with 3 minutes left in the overtime. And here's what got me, Rob and Dan. I didn't know what it would take to win, and I have watched football since I was 3 years old. I mean, I've stopped recently. This overtime thing, I'm like, okay, one team scored and then another team gets a try, but then it's the end of the first period, I guess, if they tie, but if the other team scores and had more points, okay. Football used to complain about American football fans, about soccer rules about who wins a game. Could we all just notice here that it got a little confusing at the end there about who was going to win? Because
there were
apparently most of the 49ers didn't know the new rules, and they were unprepared for these and learned the new rules as it was being talked about on the Jumbotron live.
The fans or the players?
The players. They talked about this after the game. They're like, well, we didn't really.
I'm with them. But I mean, I think if you're putting on the tights that these guys are putting on and your fancy outfits and your headwear, you should know. But the rest of us, I mean, there's no telling what was going on in that football game, why somebody was going to win or not win. Thought they were going to add extra minutes for the time when the clock wasn't running, or when the clock was running, but they weren't playing like they do in soccer.
Oh, I
stoppage time. Yeah,
I hate it. You don't know when the game's over. Hate it.
But you know who else had fun with the Super Bowl? The president. He tweeted this minutes after the Chiefs won, just like we drew it up. Just trolling.
So if you're just watching or listening on the audio and not being able to watch right now, it's this tweet of Joe Biden with laser eyes, smiling, and the tweet is just like we drew it up. Because there's this talk in a very small political world, you'd have to know that some people in the conservative MAGA wing of America are saying that this is all just a ruse to get more support for Joe Biden.
Yes. And this is, for those that might not know, this is what's known as the Dark Brandon meme.
Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about this more later. I hope Joe Biden can find a footing to be the humorous person, to be old Joe in a fun way and poke at this stuff and be above it and not be like he was last week at that press conference where he was being owly, because that just doesn't translate well. Hey,
should we talk about?
Let me just stand Taylor Swift for a minute. Some of you know that I have a friend named Casey, and we do a thing called Red Hat, Blue Hat Talk, and we did it yesterday. And we didn't get to a couple of things we wanted to. And one, he messaged me today, and I asked if I could share this here, and he said, sure. He said, hey, it's interesting that all you lefties aren't concerned about the carbon footprint of Taylor Swift flying from Japan on her private jet. And no one's complaining about how much money she's earning. Everyone's bragging about it. Said, I just think that's a little interesting. He said, and on top of that, haven't heard anybody talk about the logo, the mascot for the Kansas City Chiefs in a while. And I just said to him, hey, it's a cause for you to take up. I think you should take up the cause of, rich people on private jets ruining the environment and not caring about the things we used to care about. And he said, nah, I just think it's kind of interesting. And I gave him a touche. It is interesting. Right. It is a thing that's worth noting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My wife did comment on the irony of the end zone with the Chiefs name and logo, and then across the out of bounds line on one end of the field it said "It takes all of us," and on the other end of the field, where the Chiefs logo was, it said "End racism." Right above the Chiefs name and logo.
End racism.
And
I can think of a place we could start, but
yeah. And listen, I say this, I am totally in favor of the name being changed. I grew up a Cleveland sports fan, was always a fan of the Cleveland Indians, totally in favor of them changing their name, getting rid of the Chief Wahoo mascot, all of it. Same thing with the team in Washington, whose name was the most egregious of them all. Absolutely, absolutely, totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, truly, I haven't heard anything about it. And I don't know what it was. 4 years ago, there was that big boycott, or was it longer ago than that, of the NFL? And there was real conversation whether the NFL could survive because of the racial undertones of the responses of a lot of the owners, the straight out racism of a lot of the fans because of head injuries. Remember that period of time? Well, apparently that question has been answered. The NFL is the most powerful economic engine in American entertainment.
And then coupled with Taylor Swift, it is just holy cow. Like, this is unbelievable, these numbers that are turned in. And can I just say, Squirrely Prepper, listen, Penny, I liked you for a long time. But now that I find out that you're a Bengals fan, I'm sorry.
Those are fighting words.
Yeah, we're gonna have a problem.
I love it. Hey, and nothing makes a transition from one team against another team than talking about politics, which for a lot of people is basically boiled down to that.
Right.
It's like football with consequences. Hey, it is election day too. We should be reminding people, if you happen to live in, I think it's the 3rd district in New York. You have a election tonight that has a lot of consequence to it. Tom Swayze is the former congressional rep and former mayor of one of the towns in the district. He is now running again for the seat held by George Santos until he was kicked out of Congress. And it looks not like an easy win for either side. Republicans won this seat by 8 points. The governor lost this district by 12 points in 2022. So something's happening in New York. Some people are blaming it on redistricting lines and all the rest of it, but the suburbs of New York are not like the suburbs of other places in America, apparently, because the suburbs of New York are moving more Republican. And they elected a Republican, and now they're looking very strongly at maybe electing another one. So that's a real political thing. Now, whether one district is ever a what's it called when it's like a wind something? When it's an indicator. What's that phrase people use? I don't know whether it's an indicator of what's going on in the rest of the country will be interesting. So, and it has to do with the control of Congress, of the House in some ways, because if the number that of people that the Democrats have in a majority could drop down to 1 or 2, that makes passing a whole lot of things that they want to pass very difficult. Because if someone's away, like they were last week, they couldn't impeach the administration official that they wanted to impeach at that time, Mayorkas, for his job as Homeland Security head. So anyway, lots going on in a big election tonight. So if you're one of those people that watches news or political results like football, it's Super Bowl day, or maybe say playoff.
It's not quite Super Bowl day, but yeah, and this is Democrats have consistently won over and over and over again in all of the, these, as Yabbitt says, the bellwether elections, the ones that are some indication, as some indication of what could be happening in the future, and what the mood of the country is. It's really difficult to take a one localized congressional campaign in such a weird circumstance with George Santos and his expulsion from Congress and everything. I'm not sure no matter who wins here, if Democrats are able to take this seat, I'm not sure we can turn that into some kind of national narrative. If Republicans hold this seat, I don't think we can turn that into some kind of national narrative. I think this is a pretty unique situation that other times as we've looked at elections, we looked at, like, for instance, what happened in Virginia, where there was expectations that Glenn Youngkin was going to rout the Democrats and have control of both houses of the Virginia legislature, and then it turned out not to happen, and everybody saw that as some indication that Democrats are stronger than the polls indicate. I don't think this election can be nationalized that way. I think it's just too weird of a situation to be able to do that.
People are paying attention to it this morning after a bunch of work over the weekend in polling and in the district, are saying it's kind of the competition between two big topics. For Democrats, they want to talk about abortion and choice and freedoms. We want to keep running on that. And in that area, especially because it's New York, it is the border and immigration, because of the impacts in New York City of the way the mayor of New York City has chosen to manage the people needing housing, the asylum seekers, especially needing housing in New York State and hoarding them in New York City. So in some ways, I think you're right, Rob. We probably can't tell, but it will be interesting to see if one of those ideas is more lands better with voters than others. So, we will. We'll have to see if it becomes a blow. If it's 8 points or 10 points either way for somebody, then it might. I don't know. It might be like, okay, something was up here, and it could again just at the end of it all be polling no longer works, so we should stop doing it. It's probably something I want to say tomorrow morning. Like, could we just get over it finally here? But it drives a lot of what people are doing and a lot of the messaging that people are up to. So it'll be a big deal. I really, really, really hope that Swayze wins. I like him personally. He's somebody who's been affiliated with Vote Common Good and our Catholic arm called Catholics Vote Common Good. He's a really good cat. And if Republicans have less wiggle room in the House, that's better for America, in my view. So I really, really hope he wins. Not every congressional race really makes a difference. This one really could. It could make a real serious difference. Hey, should we talk about those Super Bowl ads for a minute?
Did you have a favorite Super Bowl ad?
Yeah, well, I saw those Jesus Gets Us ads. Did you pay attention to those, or did you fast forward?
I paid attention. These guys.
I love them. Look, I think they're genius. I'm not sure how well they work for the goal that some people have, which is to get people to follow Jesus. Fair enough. Glad people do that. I wish more people would follow the life and teachings of Jesus. I think the world would be better if that's something that they claim that they do, that they would actually do it. But the other messaging going on, that in the midst of the things we care about, which is how faith identity informs political identity, to see ads at this level in what did you call it, Rob? The most watched television show in the history of the human race.
Yes. Yep.
That they would take multiple minutes at very high watching moments for many people who watch I know some people skip the commercials. A lot of people only watch the commercials, and that the messaging that came out was hate doesn't fit your faith. I don't know if that's what they were wanting to say explicitly, but that's what the ad said. And I saw 2 or 3 of them, and then a bunch of them are online. If you're not familiar with these ads, it's He Gets Us, and they do a cute little thing where the us is blended into Jesus. Anyway, so that's its own deal. Yes. But we're going to watch this foot washing video when they did, which is the first one I saw. I paused, called my wife Shelly and said, "Okay, you got to watch this one." Jim is now in the comments calling it the Jesus pedicure ad because they're washing feet. They didn't really go so far as to explain why foot washing is happening, but as somebody who appreciates the foot washing narrative in contrast to the communion narrative that the Gospel of John puts forth, it's really quite wonderful. And that could be a whole Wednesday conversation that we have, by the way. The removal of the Passover narrative for a service narrative. But anyway, we could get into that. But in this point, they choose a series of images to try to say somebody's acting Jesus-y here. And I think it goes if I were a conservative person that felt that my faith was compelling me to stand against migration or against a cultural shift or against abortion, and I needed to be out and fighting on these issues and all of this and using all means possible, and you watch this, it is saying something else. So, Robert, Dan, do either of you have comments before we take a look at it?
No, I think it's doing its job in starting conversations. People on the left and right didn't like it for various reasons, which I think is interesting, and it's getting attention and sparking conversations. So good on them.
What were the people on the left's?
The criticism from folks on the left is that the people who have put these ads together include like the owner of Hobby Lobby, people known for very right-wing activism, and they've accused this campaign of trying to put a kinder, gentler face on what is a their culture war approach to politics, even while they seem to be undermining it through the contents of the ad. So it's a bit perplexing. There's the the fallacy of origins, where is this thing is a problem because of where it came from. I think when you look at the ad on its own, I find it very compelling. Then the question becomes, is there an ulterior motive here? What is it? Does it actually play out with the vast majority of people watching this? Do they know that it was funded by the guy from Hobby Lobby? If they do they know what else the guy from Hobby Lobby funds? I
wonder about the whole funding critique. It's like these people give millions of dollars to a bunch of different things. I doubt Hobby Lobby guy was in the meetings for these commercials, like deciding who's washing whose feet, So it is a little problematic that maybe this is some sort of, whitewashing of the culture wars, but I feel like that's looking into it almost too far.
Yeah, totally my take as well. In fact, when you dig into the numbers, monies are given by foundations that are connected to things like Hobby Lobby. And if you want to go down the route of people I disagree with on one topic can't be included in anything else that I consider to be right because they're the wrong people. If we're going to try a purity test like this overall, I mean, I just think we're into the fundamentalism that is unmanageable and frankly damaging. The idea that many millions of dollars have come into this LLC, this He Gets Us LLC that's put this whole thing together. And when people want to go through all the donors into this and say, well, this person doesn't believe the thing that this is saying, even though it came through a foundation that distributes the money separately from the people who ran. I mean, look, this is the same thing. I have friends who won't shop at Amazon because they don't like Amazon employee practices, but they will use Amazon Web Services to host their websites that tell them that they won't shop at Amazon. Okay, so I get it. Like we all live, it's a complicated world, especially economically. But this idea that like these are the people behind it, it's funded by the Hobby Lobby guy. Well, okay, that's just not accurate. It's not what's happening. It's one of the people. But this kind of thing, and look, I get it. And if that's people's sheer concerns, it feels to me though like people's concern about this is deeper than that. It's like we don't want religion out in the flow of things like this. Like it feels inappropriate. Anybody who's doing this and is into their religion in a public way and wants people to be compelled by their, I don't think people say it. I think it roots it. I think it's sort of where it comes from, that there's no good reason someone would be doing this other than some ulterior motive. Because last year when these things came out, before people could even dig around in the money, they're like, whoa, what is this? Who would be doing this, right? So there's something alive in our society that, that phrase, Rob, I don't know if I've heard that before, the origins fallacy. So anyway, I think it raises a whole lot of issues. But for the people for whom this is targeted at, and I don't mean the convert. Who it's kind of targeted at, it seems to me, at least this foot washing one, they play a really great song over it that we're not going to play here because the way the rules about playing copyrighted music work on systems like YouTube and Facebook and stuff, we can't play the song, so we're going to just watch it without it, and we'll sort of make some commentary over it. And I think for our purposes, it is a highly political commercial in my estimation when you look at the images and really pay attention to what they do. So people are just listening on the podcast. It's a series of images over 1 minute. I don't know how many there are, maybe every 3 seconds or so, of different people in situations where somebody is washing someone else's feet, and they're kind of I don't know, odd little paintings or
AI generated.
They're AI generated.
It's like they spent all their budget on just getting the placement for these ads. And they're like, well, we've got $5 left to actually make the commercial. Does anyone have Chat GPT and a
Somebody have a $10 mid-range?
They don't look. Do you guys think they look cheap?
No. I like them. I like how they're stylized.
I think they're just stylized.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Rob, Dan, we're going to talk over these, by the way.
So because there's no audio, so we don't get in trouble.
Nothing like taking an artistic expression. All right, so the first one is a young man bent down in a kind of a family setting. Then there's a police officer washing the feet of a young man in an alley. Then there's two young people in a high school setting. There's an Indian native-looking person being washed. This one, Dan, can you pause on this one? I think this one's interesting. They're outside of a family planning clinic. There's people in the background with signs that say "Stop Abortion" and so on, and the signs are held down, like they're not holding them up. And then this mom-looking person is washing the feet of a young girl, and it's saying something, right? Like, put the sign down and wash the feet. Look, they've done race, they've done policing, they've done migration setting, and now they're doing abortion in like 15, 20 seconds. They are saying something here, and I think it's pretty great.
Can we notice here that the girl in this picture whose feet are being washed is not obviously pregnant? In fact, like, the folds in her jumper that she's wearing where around her stomach look like it what I'm saying here is it looks like this is a woman who is coming out of the family planning clinic having had an abortion, not a pregnant woman headed in.
Well, a lot of people who seek an abortion do that before their bodies are showing. But look, I like that. I like that narrative that you have here, whether going in or going out. I like what you're saying about that. That could be a narrative of coming out. And look, it's saying something else about these hot button issues, right? And if they're going to put a Jesus wrapper around this and then send it out to 120 million people, good for them for doing that, for saying something else about these topics. Right. Yeah. All right. Should we? I don't know what else is even left on this thing, but this was the one that really struck me, man. Okay. Well, let's roll them. Oh yeah. Okay. This was someone sitting in a disheveled looking house. And then here's another one that's in a desert and a young girl. Here's a migrant getting off of a bus.
Oh, so this one is, it's like an environmental protest or Clean Air Now. And then it's a guy drilling for oil. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, okay. It's a random
using his hard hat for the water. So,
and there's somebody looks like in a head covering like a Muslim person. Here's some people with different signs and people washing their feet. Here's two men, black man and an old white man, feet in a bucket together.
Yeah, this one is reminiscent of the Mr. Rogers.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
The moment where he washes the feet of.
Well, putting it like he and the black police officer put their feet in a little kiddie pool.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers show. Like that's what this one reminded
me. Yeah. Nice eye on that one. Yeah, and then a priest outside on a beach with somebody who's maybe some mixed gender narrative, and then it says Jesus didn't teach hate; he washed feet. So look, you say what you want. They're not hiding the idea that they're like hate doesn't fit. Now we know in our work that people think that we're the haters. I'm often reminded of that person at that rally who told us that she was pro-life, but not anti-death penalty, not anti-gun, not anti-war, and said to me, if any of you or your Black Lives loving friends came into my house without my permission, I'd shoot you dead myself. And then she said to me in the very next breath, pointing at one of our signs, the yard signs that say, faith not fear, hope not hate, love not lies, vote common good. She said, can I have one of those yard signs? Because she thought that we were the ones who were peddling fear, hate, and lies. Okay, so fair enough. But I think anybody watching this is going to be like, this was a direct narrative at what feels like the hate speech that comes out of portions of the Republican electorate that's backed by religion. I don't know that someone could read it any other way, or at least isn't taken with the idea that they're claiming right out of the chutes, hate doesn't fit here. So anyway, I thought it was political and on the mark, and was glad to see it for that purpose. Again, whether it works as evangelism, which some people probably want it to do, like people to know more about Jesus, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure. But 1 minute there.
I do think just go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was just going to say, like, culturally, like, I get the whole feet washing thing as a symbol, but I mean,
I was going to say the same thing.
It was a cultural thing that was necessitated by the fact that everybody wore sandals and walked around in, unpaved roads. I'm not sure. Like, I like how I don't know. It like, it's a clever symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there will be those literalists who think we should actually be washing each other's feet. I'm not sure that's actually the point. And I say this as someone who pastored a church for 15 years, who had a Monday, Thursday service where we did wash each other's feet. And,
yep, I thought it was weird then too.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, I'm the kind of person, my feet are so ticklish. I can't have somebody touch my feet. I like, when I get a massage, I say, they're like, hey, I'm like, no feet, don't touch my feet. Cause you'll get kicked in the face. I'm so ticklish that it just, So I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's compelling. It's interesting. It's certainly caught attention, but it's weird.
Yeah, I think it's
not at all.
If you're trying to reach people who didn't grow up in the subculture where this was a thing, I think it's just weird and cringy and misses the mark. I think someone in the chat mentioned it though. If this is just a reminder to people who already claim to be Christian that maybe you shouldn't hate people on the other side of whatever disagreement, I think that's great.
Look, this is clear insider symbolism. Religion uses symbols all the time, whether it's communion or heads bowed or eyes closed. All this stuff is symbols that's how human beings communicate, is in symbols. And this is insider symbolism, like a lot of commercials were. I watched the sports betting commercials, didn't understand what they were communicating and what was funny about them, because I don't do sports betting. That's why I like these commercials, because I don't think they're designed for outsiders like me to religion when I grew up. I mean, when I watched the Super Bowl and saw a John 3:16 sign as a teenager, I didn't know what that was, because I didn't know anything about the Bible at all. I had no reference point for John 3:16 whatsoever. Didn't even know that it was something interesting to be looking at until the guy put the rainbow hair on. And then it got a little bit interesting. So this is not for outsiders to religion. This is communicated, because it's using foot washing, an insider symbol. It's to people who consider themselves in. That's what I love about it. So they're saying to those people, Jesus didn't hate. He served. He washed feet. He did the other thing. Maybe you should do that instead of hating, right? And so I don't know. I mean, we go around saying that all the time. And if someone's going to join in on that bandwagon, great. And if you're going to take your money that you also sometimes use for other purposes that I don't agree with and use them for this one, why don't you give us all your money and we'll use it for this messaging alone? If you're into that, that'd be fine with me. I'll take that money that you have control of, and instead of having you say that you don't have to support people's healthcare because you don't agree with their religion. Well, let's put out some messages that say, if you're going to claim Jesus, stop hating. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. I like it personally a lot. Dan, I feel like you should run the Common Good Politics commercial break so we can shift into other.
Just like a little.
And we're back. Thanks for our sponsors.
Speaking of the opposite of Jesus, let's talk about Donald Trump for a couple of minutes here. And hey, can we play the NATO clip?
Yeah.
Trump talking about NATO. I mean, the former casino owner who went bankrupt is now saying that when he was the president, he was leveraging against our allies in international alliance called NATO, which has existed to protect countries in Europe from invasion of Russia, that the most important thing about NATO is, do they pay 2% of their budget into NATO? And if they don't, then we don't have a deal. It's not we have a deal and here's how we fund the deal. It is the only deal is you pay. A lot of people refer to this in the last few days as Trump saying he's running a strong arm racket. In other words, saying that the United States will pay for your protection if you pay up. And you might think we're putting words in Trump's mouth, but he literally says it. And he's in South Carolina this week, babbling on for an hour plus in a rally in which the people behind him are young people who look clearly bored. And Rob, you and I have experienced the boredom of Donald Trump wavering on and not being able to read up the teleprompter.
Good. A Donald Trump rally is not a good experience. It's boring.
Did you hear the audio this week when he's reading off the teleprompter and then reads the teleprompter prompts?
No, like Ron Burgundy.
The prompts were, and he says rapidly, and so he's saying something about, and we're going to do the thing. He says rapidly, and then says the thing. Like he's reading the teleprompter prompts because he's
amazing.
Donald Trump. Let's just turn into that. So he's reading off of teleprompters. They've chosen to really continue picking the fight with NATO, and he makes what a lot of people feel like is a made-up story, where he said that one of the leaders of a large European nation said to him, "Sir." And
I love this "sir," because everyone that talks to him, so respectful.
Yeah,
uses that.
Leaders of other countries don't call someone "sir." But then he's, so anyway. Well, I guess we'll just play.
Let's just roll it. Yeah.
They were 250. I did the same thing with NATO. I got them to pay up. NATO was busted until I came along. I said, everybody's going to pay. They said, well, if we don't pay, are you still going to protect us? I said, absolutely not. They couldn't believe the answer. And everybody, you never saw more money pour in to Secretary General Stoltenberg. Well, I don't know if he is anymore, but he was my biggest fan. He said, all these presidents came in, they'd make a speech, they'd leave, and that was it. And they all owed money, and they wouldn't pay it. I came in, I made a speech, and I said, you got to pay up. They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
Here's Donald Trump.
Can I go first? Can I go first here?
Take it, Rob.
You got to pay your bills. You got to pay your bills. Donald Trump complaining about countries who haven't paid their bills, NATO. Donald Trump. Construction companies with unpaid bills. Lawyers with unpaid bills. Cities that have hosted rallies with unpaid bills. Restaurants who were told, hey, get one for everybody, I'm paying, who have unpaid bills. Vendors who have unpaid bills. Over and over and over again, Donald Trump, the person in our country who stiffs people more than any other, who does not pay their own bills. You are the one who doesn't pay their bills. So shut up about countries in NATO paying or not paying. You got to pay your bills. You got to pay your bills, Donald Trump.
Well, if anyone should know about not paying bills, this guy is the one.
Well, when he doesn't pay bills, it's a shrewd business move.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's just, and we just
when
pay
you don't
taxes.
pay your taxes. Yeah, that's smart.
If he cheats on his taxes, if he over-evaluates and gets cheaper loan rates, that's just being smart. But apparently NATO is not being smart. So consider just for a moment, all of us, what he's saying. Not just, hey, if he had said something like, look, NATO doesn't work if we don't all pay. We can't all be protected if we don't all, we have to be in on this. But instead, he frames it as, I will encourage Russia to do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
To you.
Absolutely wild.
Secondly, NATO is an alliance of nations that has said that they will come together to protect any nation that's attacked. One time has it been invoked. The beneficiary, the United States of America, after 9/11. One time has it been invoked. The NATO nations are not saying America will protect us. NATO is saying NATO nations will support NATO nations. It is not a question of will the United States singularly support every other nation if they're attacked. That's not what NATO is. If Trump doesn't want to participate in it, he can say we're not. But you know what every other nation in NATO is going to do? Come to defend other nations in NATO. And the one time they did it was to support the United States of America. So for this guy to act as if what NATO is his personal reinforcement thuggery group, that's not what NATO is fundamentally. His misunderstanding of nearly everything he touches as president is utterly shocking. He doesn't understand that the United States is a lead nation in an association of other nations. And the fact that people cheer this on, look, if the United States wants to pull out of NATO, then the United States will not be supported in any time in which the United States is attacked, which happened on September 1st, on September 11th. So look, Trump's inability to understand anything about how things work is dangerous. And when he gets up and says this kind of nonsense about how NATO functions, as if it's his decision alone whether a nation's going to be supported, is going to be supported by the United States, as if world leaders are like, oh, we just need you to come and support us, sir. Like, it's just utter nonsense. And look, if the United States pulls out of NATO, it makes NATO worse. If any nation pulls out of NATO, it makes nations worse. But the United States has a unique role in the world, and the guy should be saying, we are leaders. And you know what we're not going to do? Our commitments are not going to be lessened by your behavior. Could you be any more weak, Donald Trump, than to say, we can't fulfill the commitments we want to make because of your choices not to pay? You sound pathetic and weak. It's just simply incredible that he pitches this as strength.
Yeah, just the classic tough guy act. And it's been interesting to see Republican leaders sort of try to soften this. Like, well, you got to just listen to how he's saying it, the emotion behind it. Don't actually take it literally. He doesn't mean that. Like, well, yeah. Why is he saying the words then? Why is he saying, I would encourage Russia to do whatever they want and to attack our allies because they haven't paid whatever due? Like, it's just... Yeah. They continue to defend this stuff is totally just wild to me.
And in some ways it's all about Trump, and in some ways it's not. It's about Trump pushing out the talking points to Republicans about what they're supposed to think about this. Because now you have all kinds of Republicans that used to be into NATO, used to think it was important, used to think international alliances matter, that now are like, well, no, we don't anymore.
Yeah, and used to think that Russia or the Soviet Union was... Yeah, I used to think that Russia and Soviet Union, was a threat to the future of the United States, and now not so much.
Yep. Yeah, it's just he's something else. All right. What else we got today, gents?
Well, thanks for joining us, Teresa. You'll cry in November, she says, when Trump is president again. Blah ha 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 ha. I might. I literally might.
I don't want to listen. I don't want to get technical here.
You're right. If that happens,
I don't want to get technical here. But in November, Trump is not going to be president. Okay. Even if he wins the election, he doesn't become president until January of the following year. So
we've got a little time before we cry.
Yeah,
after the certification,
regulate our emotions.
Yeah.
So, guys,
but we do have other things going on. Yeah,
I will cry again. Yes.
Have you seen this news that Donald Trump wants to install his daughter-in-law as the co-chair of the Republican National Committee? Mitt Romney's niece, Ronna McDaniel, is being after a really stellar performance as chairperson of the RNC, where the Republicans repeatedly lost election after election after election after election. Ronna is now being pushed out. She's fallen from favor with Donald Trump, and she is leaving this position. And so Donald Trump wants to replace her with co-chairs. One being a campaign loyalist from his team, the other being his daughter-in-law, and singer Lara Trump becoming the face of the Republican Party. I find this super interesting because it's an indication that what we saw in 2016 we will not see again. What we saw in 2016 was Donald Trump surrounding himself with political people who had experience, and what ended up happening was he was repeatedly disappointed by them, and there will be a really significant push for him to have his people who have loyalty to him serving in positions of power, and we're seeing that with this push in the RNC. I think the other thing this means is that the Republican National Committee has been paying many of Donald Trump's bills because his legal fees, because he doesn't pay his bills. His bills. I mean, maybe Russia should attack him and see who comes to his defense. So the RNC has been paying many of his legal defense bills. You imagine that with loyalists to Donald Trump taking over, that's only going to continue and grow. And so this is a full-on fusion of not that we didn't think this was happening already, but it's beyond the point of even debate now. Full-on fusion of the Republican Party and Donald Trump and his campaign.
Yeah, especially the RNC. And if people aren't familiar with what national committees do, the DNC or the RNC, their primary function is supposed to be to raise money to put forth the presidential candidate and to do some general messaging. Donald Trump uses it as the bank account by which he pays for his misdeeds. And so I guess it makes sense that they would put somebody in the family in there because she has vested interest in the monies that donors give to the RNC to be spent on Donald Trump's misdeeds for lawyers and other legal costs, rather than the money that she thinks she's going to get after the bankruptcies are totally completed and he's fully liquidated after the legal process continues. So they are now going to be scrounging for scraps. So she has very, very good reasons to want to be in that particular role. How long do you think before Ronna McDaniel, who was the former leader of the RNC, before she has a job at CNN or somewhere else and is talking about how ridiculous and dangerous Donald Trump is? Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months? Will it happen before the election or after? And then how soon before he turns on her and calls her literally a rhino when she was the head of the Republican National Committee? How long are we talking? Should we get an over-under on this one?
I think I would take the over. I think she is going to be one of those people like others who have remained loyal to him, like a Kellyanne Conway, who has every reason not to be and has yet remained loyal to him. I think Rona's going to end up being one of those people.
Huh? I don't think he pushes her out if she's going to be one of those people. So I'm guessing something's already gone sour, and he's already turned on her in his heart. But
in his heart,
I got to get out of there. I got to get out of inside out. Hey, all right. So Joe Biden.
I was going to keep on the Trump train just for a minute and talk about the fact that all 4 of Trump's criminal cases are coming to a head in just like this week and the coming weeks. And so judges are trying to decide what's moving forward. Will Trump stand trial? What will that look like? It's going to get interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the prosecutor in Georgia is now has been accused of wrongdoing, and there's going to be a hearing into that. The Supreme Court is going to be weighing in on the immunity case. We're waiting on the judge in New York to make his ruling on the status of the Trump organization and what that is going to look like. There's debate about what's happening with the judge in Florida, and the classified documents case, and if she is protecting Trump and if she should be removed from the case. I mean, there's a lot. There is a lot going on in the legal cases of Donald Trump.
Yep. Yeah, it's all over the place, and it comes in these waves. There was a period of time a few weeks ago when it was all really quiet, not much was happening. Then now this week, so many of these things could all have some resolution to them and next step forward. And the guy's in serious trouble, right? For all the bluster there is, and he's running for office. It is no slouch that he's facing 91 felony counts. Like that is. We just shouldn't take our eye off of that just sheer reality. And he's spending, I think this week also is reporting week for how much money they had to spend on lawyers' fees in the last quarter. And it's just going to be in the millions of dollars. Like it's just really, really terribly, terribly awful. But look, Trump is found a way to turn this into support. He always knew he could, because he said in 2015, my polling tells me I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any supporters. And so when people are sticking with him, he's been reading them right the whole time. They're not going anywhere. Now he'll lose 3% of his supporters, and that's what's going to make his numbers low enough. If all things stay the same with those who would be voting on the other side of the ticket, if those numbers stay up. But if Trump loses 3% and Biden loses 5%, then that's not enough. So he still has a possibility of being president, because what could happen in five states where the margin of victory in 2024 was sometimes as low as 9,000 votes.
Yeah. And Dan, I don't know if you got the graphic that I sent over a couple minutes ago. If you did, if you wouldn't mind throwing that up on the screen, but it's related to Trump support. Listen, we know that Christians, white evangelicals, white Christians of all stripes have strongly supported Donald Trump It has motivated much of our work at Vote Common Good. There was released some information about the 20 largest majority white denominations in the United States and their support of Donald Trump. And you look at this list and you see 72% of Southern Baptists, 78% of Assembly of God. Not a lot of surprises until, and this is a totally niche thing, until you get down at the fourth from the bottom, the General Association of Regular Baptists. And that caught my eye because the General Association of Regular Baptists is the fundamentalist denomination that I grew up in. And it's the denomination that I say that, like, growing up, we weren't allowed to have anything to do with Southern Baptists because they were too liberal. It is a denomination that my grandfather helped to found back in the 1930s in the midst of the fundamentalist modernist controversy. It is an organization that I know very, very, very well. Shocked to see that only 49% of General Association of Regular Baptist Church folks were supportive of Donald Trump. Just could not believe that. Just shocked that my fundamentalist denomination shows up on the right end of this chart. Just stunning. Stunning.
It is stunning. And look,
why do you think that is? Like, what's peeling them away? Like, are they still so far right of Trump on many issues that he's... Because we ran into some people at the Army of God trucker convoy that were outside protesting against the trucker convoy, but with religious language even more extreme. And it kind of hurt my brain to think about. I was like, aren't you guys on the same team here? Yeah. But what do you think it is?
My guess would be that it would be a break based on piety and behavior, not policy. That there would be, because like behavior and keeping the rules and divorce being a problem and drinking being a problem, and swearing, and like you keep up appearances and act a certain way. My guess is that there would be a significant number of people who believed those things, that Donald Trump was an offense to those sensibilities in his personal behavior. It wouldn't be a policy thing. It wouldn't be because they're not pro-life or whatever. I think it would be, my guess, it would be I can't vote for this guy because of who he is. But again, fundamentalist Baptist denomination.
Yep.
Just shocked to see them included in the top 20 largest white denominations in the country.
For that,
first of all, but second of all, shocked to see where they ended up on this list.
Yeah, and this list obviously doesn't list the size of these denominations. It's listing their level of support for Trump. So the drop-offs can be pretty severe between the top three groups, which is the numbers of people and that there are in each of those denominations. But look, there's something to this. Dan Deitrich of Vote Common Good podcast fame, before he was famous here, was famous for a song he wrote called The Hymn to the 81%. And the numbers in 2016 were 81% of white evangelicals supporting Donald Trump. The problem for him in 2020 was he didn't get near that number. Even with the level of just non-denominational evangelicals being at 78% and Assemblies of God being at 78%, the fact that all those other ones were down in the lower 70s, that's why he didn't get there.
Yes.
It was the movement of religious people, white religious people, away from Donald Trump. The sad reality for anybody who cares about religion and politics in America is that Trump gained, I think, in every other religious subculture. Gained in black voters, he gained in Hispanic religious voters, he gained in Muslim voters. He gained in Jewish voters between 2016 and 2020. Where he lost was with white voters, and specifically with white male religious Christian voters. That's the group he lost with. It's the group he needs to continue to lose with, and then we need to help the other groups also not vote for him, and to have other options in order to maintain their faith. So while these numbers can feel horrible in someone's heart, right? So you look and you're like 78% of these non-denominational evangelicals still. I know this. This is C.S. Lewis kind of logic. Well, it's better than 81%. It's been worse. There's been a decline, and let's get 2024 numbers down to 76% in that area. So if you're talking with someone, if you're working with someone, if you're trying to help move, little numbers here, in all the places can start to move those numbers down. And if you think it's only the evangelicals that are the problem, and you do your denominational brands separating evangelicals from the more Protestant brands, take a look at the fact that 52% of Lutherans and 62% United Methodists support Donald Trump. So if you work in those spaces, or people in those spaces, and you can start to move 1% or 2% of the people in your own life, and a bunch of people do that, if we get those numbers down 1 or 2% across the board, it makes an enormous difference. So don't tell yourselves that that all of these Christian voters are locked in for Trump, and the only thing we can do is drive turnout on the other side. We do have to drive turnout, but we also can work with some of these people. And if that matters to you, then that's how you can do it. So if you're looking for a free strategy tip, you're part of something. Anybody listening to this and watching this, this is how it goes. And it might seem like you're not winning because the numbers don't get below 50%. We're talking about support in an election, and there's so many of these people that you all know can make a huge impact and huge difference.
Yep, for sure.
And we should talk, and as just one little lecture here, telling people they're hypocrites and fools is not a great way to get someone to change.
Yes.
So lean into the better angels of their aspirations.
Yes, and let me jump into the pastoral side of that. Where and preach a little mini sermon. There's a little verse in the book of Romans that says that it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance. Kindness is the thing that brings about change in people's lives. Grace is mercy. Those are the things that bring about change in people's lives. If you think about how any way that you ever changed in your life, was it because of guilt and shame? No, those things don't motivate us to change. They motivate us they make us feel bad, but they don't motivate us to change. The thing that actually brings about lasting change in people's lives is grace and mercy and kindness. And that's how we ought to engage people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. We got anything else on the politics side?
We need to
tons.
We need to talk about we need to talk about Joe Biden. Listen, we have a problem. We literally have a problem. And we've talked about it here on the podcast before. But last week there was a special counsel report detailing Joe Biden's taking of classified documents from his time as vice president of the United States. Apparently, he revealed some classified information in the midst of a conversation. There were no charges brought against him, different than Donald Trump. But the report written by a Republican lawyer blasted Joe Biden as a well-meaning elderly man with significant memory loss, cognitive decline, detailed things like claiming that he didn't remember when his son died. He didn't remember when he was vice president. He didn't know when he would when his first term as president would end, like just hammering him on his age and frailty. And this narrative is going to be a real problem. It's going to be a real problem. And especially, it actually opens up, and I don't know, we talked about Super Bowl ads. We didn't talk about the RFK Super Bowl ad, the RFK Jr. Super Bowl ad. I don't know if you saw that one, Doug. Take a look at that one. It was a very clever political ad that I thought was, while I'm not a supporter of RFK Jr. at all, just from purely political standpoint, I thought it was a very clever ad and really well done. Joe Biden's got a problem. He's got a problem.
Yeah.
He's been maybe the most effective president of our lifetime. So there's multiple things that go into being president. You have to be good at, to be president, there's maybe 3 different skill sets. There is and we've talked in the past, there's like the comforter in chief. That in the times of national crisis where you project the empathy, Donald Trump was terrible at this. He was awful at it. Joe Biden, thankfully, hasn't had a ton of reasons to need to express that, but he's naturally very good at that. There is the negotiation component where you've got to work with congressional leaders to get bills passed, and there's the policy component of getting your agenda passed. Again, Donald Trump, terrible at this, terrible at it. Infrastructure week over and over and over again. And Joe Biden got infrastructure done, and several other things. Against all odds, he has been tremendously effective, maybe the most effective president in our lifetimes at getting bills passed. Third component, it's the forward-facing, casting a vision, leadership component, where you give a speech and you inspire and you chart out a vision, and the country feels good about where we're going because of your ability to speak and to. Joe Biden's terrible at this.
Yeah.
And he's terrible at it, and his age is just making it worse. The other things, the comforter in chief happens occasionally, hopefully rarely. The negotiation, the policy component happens behind closed doors and doesn't get seen. The thing that is front facing, the thing that is everybody sees, it's the thing that he's the worst at as president of the United States. And it's a real problem. It's a real problem.
And one of the other problems is what's happening in Gaza, and he's been really feeling the pressure from maybe half the Democratic Party, saying you gotta get more involved. And it was good to see in his press conference a couple days ago him coming out and saying we're not going to. He didn't come out and say it's going to stop anything, but he said to Israel, do not continue with this campaign in Rafah where you told people to go so they'd be safe, and now you're going to bomb this refugee area. Basically said, stop that. Don't do that. We'll see if that has any teeth to it. But during that press conference, and I texted you guys, it was just painful to watch. It just it looked like he was about to fall asleep, is the Sleepy Joe thing. And I don't know if you guys caught the halftime show of the Super Bowl, but when Usher put on roller skates and was skating around, I was just nervous the whole time that he was going to fall and hurt himself. That's how I feel when Joe Biden is talking. I'm just nervous that, can he get through this? He was coughing. He's got a perception problem, and he has these policy problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've known all along that when he ran for president, he was going to be the oldest president. He sort of said, at least I heard, I'm a transitional figure, which I took as one term. That deal feels like it sort of shifted. So when people say things like, hey, people picked him, I'm like, yeah, 4 years ago, big difference. This time, I don't think anyone said we're picking someone for 8 years. I know that's sort of the intention inside the political world, that you pick someone for, these are lifetime appointments, either the lifetime of the position or the lifetime of the individual, depending on what role you're in. That's kind of the assumption people make. But I think a lot of people weren't making that calculation. And the hard part here is that everything people see, Dan, what you say you experienced watching it, what Robb, you articulate so well that came out of the Her report, that fits into what people already think. Because you can see it in him. I was with a body worker yesterday. I've been doing a Rolfing thing. It's a kind of massage deal.
What now?
And it's called Rolfing.
Rolfing?
Rolfing. Yeah, ROLFING.
Doesn't sound real.
Oh, yeah.
Ralphing?
I've Ralph
throwing up?
Yeah.
So you were having you were with a body specialist who was helping you throw up?
Someone named Emma Rolfe invented this thing. It's a myofascial massage technique. Anyway, she's a body person. She's super into Biden, really supportive of all this. And she said, as somebody who pays attention to body, watching him walk, seeing the way his legs move in relationship to, those are neurological things. Like, these are people hardwired in, want Biden so much to win if Trump's the alternative, and yet are saying these are real issues. And the campaign is going to have to figure out how to make Americans be comfortable with this if he indeed is going to be the name that's on the ballot in November. And they're going to have to find some way to navigate all of this and to communicate it. And so far, there has been no indication from this White House or from the campaign till this point to be able to make that happen and to communicate in a way that's going to tell people, yes, these are conditions the man has, but it's okay. And now messaging about Kamala Harris saying that she's ready to serve if Biden's age becomes an issue is something that is to my point. And I have a shirt that says Biden Harris on it, and I wore it most proudly because it said Harris on it going into 2020. I follow politics pretty closely, not as much as Robb follows. What's the team you root for? Cleveland Browns football. I don't think I have heard but 2 speeches or 2 times where Kamala Harris has been saying anything, and one of those was on a Sunday morning news talk show. She's just never around in my world. I don't see it. I don't hear her. She's not out there. There've been no setup for her to be like, slide on in. And if Joe Biden decides not to run or has health issues or something, I don't know. It's kind of like, what's been going on for 3.5 years in the planning and plotting of all of this stuff. So it is, Robb, as you say, and Dan, it's a real issue. I still have a sense that because the candidates on either side are not actually fully picked until after the conventions, which the RNC and DNC are responsible for, that we may end up with out Joe Biden or Donald Trump on the ticket come the fall. So it could all get very interesting, and I think this is far more likely, it is those 2 on the ticket in the fall, and that's what we're staring at. And so, is there more enthusiasm for a generic D than a generic R? And is there more enthusiasm for the person marking the D and marking the R? That's going to be the real question. This is not a great position for us to be in as a country. Either way, like, almost no Republicans I know feel like it's great that Donald Trump is running. Even Trump supporters are like, yes, I wish he wasn't, but And the same way, so when we go into an election where people are like, I kind of wish this wasn't our choice, but I'm going to stick with my side. That's not our highest point as a country, right?
Yeah, it's maddening. Yep. Literally everyone I talk to on any side is like, how is this the best we have to offer from both sides? It's like, really, these are the top 2 people that are qualified to run our country? This is... It doesn't make sense.
It's wild. It is absolutely wild. And Biden had a moment. Apparently he thought about it, and people around him say he really considered whether he should run or not and made a very deliberate decision to say yes. Can you only imagine if he hadn't, what kind of energy there would be in the country right now, as opposed to, the situation that we that we have right now. Look, I still think Kamala Harris could be great at this. I think her public-facing persona has not been given to her to be a heir apparent to the presidency, and I wish that was the case. So,
I agree.
Well, thanks for everyone for hanging out in the chat. Even if you disagree, we're glad you're here.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thanks for watching us instead of watching other stuff.
Jim, you made me laugh really hard.
We were all chuckling, Jim.
I saw you guys giggling, and I couldn't look over fast enough because I felt like I had to keep talking. What was was it a Rolfing thing?
Yes, it was Rolf adjacent. Yeah.
Okay.
But hey, we'll see everyone tomorrow. Doug, you want to tell us who we've got on tomorrow, or?
It's going to be a pre-record, friends. So I know sometimes you're disappointed with those because we don't get to giggle at your humor. But maybe we'll run it live, Dan, and put people's comments up. But our guest is National Public Radio host Sarah McCammon, and she has a new book out called Ex-Vangelicals, and we're going to be recording an interview with her and then airing that tomorrow. So if you follow Sarah, you'll enjoy it. If you don't yet follow Sarah, get a jump on it. You're going to like that follow on any of the social media places. And we're really excited to have her. Had a chance to get to know her personally and her work, and fans of both. And we're going to glad to talk about this book about what's happening in the world of people that were formerly evangelical as she was, which you'll hear. That's the feature of the book. It's her own story as well. Somebody that was in that tradition and now doesn't find herself in it. And what does that mean for the country and for religion and all that? So, Sarah McCammon tomorrow. If all things go according to plan today. You never know when someone's a crack reporter like Sarah, she might get called off on an important,
on a hot lead, breaking story. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.